here we go. On top of this piece of paper, write the word expand. Not expand, but expand. Because this will be what you look at when the book tells you to expand something. And what it is, ladies and gentlemen, is what we in math call the distributive property. Have we ever done the distributive property before? That's where you would say yes or no. Maybe. And you can't have the distributive property without, ladies and gentlemen, parentheses. When you see parentheses, you should think distributive property. Is that right? Or is it the other way around? I-S-E-E-S-I. Thesis. This is right, right? A thesis. Okay? And here's the basic gist of it, children. Alright, if you see something like this, let's do this. You would not need to expand with this, but let's do this. If I have 4, and then in parentheses I have 2 plus 3. You may or may not be able to tell me the answer to that. Anybody want to take a shot in the dark what the answer is there? Zachary?
9.
9. How'd you get 9?
2 plus 3 is 5, I guess. It's just 4. This is 5. Okay.
No way. Houston, we are struggling at this point. Emily?
20.
20. Because 2 plus 3 is 5, Zach.
Yeah.
And then 4, anytime a number's next to a parenthesis means multiply, is 20. Okay? What the distributive property tells you is this, and it's not so much a big deal when you have numbers in there, but sometimes we're going to have letters in there. If I have this same thing, 4 times 2 plus 3, the distributive property says this. When you have parentheses and a number outside the parentheses, let's put that down there. When you have a number, or letter actually, outside of parentheses, comma, you can distribute. Now I'm going to put that in parentheses because distribute means, if I distribute papers, what does that mean? If I distributed your quiz, what does that look like? That means I have my stack of quiz, I walk to you, I give you one, I walk to you, I give you one, I walk to you. Distribute means you do it to everything. And that's what distributive property says. So you take this number or letter outside the parentheses and you multiply it, by the way, by every, let's triple underline that, term inside the parentheses. How many more times am I going to say parentheses today? I bet. I'm going to let you write this because I need you to focus up here on what I'm doing specifically here. And again, I don't know why people struggle with this, but for some reason they do, and it doesn't ever seem to, I mean, by the time you're midway through 8th grade, I guess most people, but I get so many people that dismiss it, I must just do a poor job of explaining it. Maybe poorer than other things that I explain. I know that's hard for you to believe. Plus, with other classes, they're at least usually awake when I'm explaining it, so I have a shot. This one, I'm not so sure. What that means is this, children. See, this 4 is being multiplied by this parenthesis. To do the distributive property, you take the 4 and you multiply it by the 2. Take this plus sign right here, and then you multiply the 4, you distribute it also out to the other thing in the parentheses, which is the 3, and get 4 times 3 is 12. And then guess what happens when you add 8 plus 12 together? You get, guess what you got when you did it the other way? Now that isn't an aha moment, I don't know what it is. But you cannot, no. You cannot do it when I prompt you. It has to be completely on your own. Now, this is not such a big deal when it's this because these are numbers, but here's the deal. It's not always going to be numbers in the parentheses. You might have something like this, 3 times a plus 4. 3 times a plus 4. Okay? You cannot put a plus 4 together. Have we talked about combining terms yet?
No.
Maybe not. It doesn't matter. You can't put them together because they're completely different. But what you can do is expand. I don't know why they call it expanding, but they do. And by expanding, they mean to use distributive property. I can get rid of these parentheses by expanding here. And what it means by that is I take this 3 and I multiply it by everything. I distribute it out to both terms. 3 times a is nothing more than 3a. 3 times 4 is 12. And that's all you can do. These don't go together. This is in its simplified form. Are you with me? Maybe it looks like this. 2 times m minus r. If I told you to expand that, you would take this 2 and multiply it by both things in the parentheses. 2 times m is 2m. This is a subtraction sign, so that is what comes after it. 2 times r is 2r. Are you with me on that?
Yes.
I shall try another. Like I said, I don't know why people don't get this, but they don't. It's, well, here's an example. The perimeter of something equals 2 times whatever you get when you add the length plus the width. If I said to you expand that, you would write out that perimeter equals, what do I get if I expand using the distributive property with the 2? What do I get? Lauren? 2L plus 2W. This 2 gets multiplied by the L, and then the 2 gets multiplied by the W. Now, are you ready for some more earth-shattering stuff?
Yes, Mr. Hahn.
Take out a blank piece of paper then. And in this earth-shattering thing, we have what we call, so we just did expanding, now we do what we call factoring. Or when it says to factor. You remember at some point we found factors and numbers, but when it says to factor, really factoring is the reverse of expanding, and it is really the reverse of distributive property. Maybe this will help if I do it this way. Let's say I have 6 times 4 plus b. Now if I said to expand that, what do I get if I expand it? We just did it. I hope you didn't forget in the last 25 seconds. So Joseph wants to tackle this one. Joseph, if I expand that, what do I get?
1.
You could do this, Joseph.
4 plus 6b.
Nice work, Joseph. 24, 6 times 4 is 24, multiply that times that plus 6b. If you are asked to factor, you are going to be given this. You are going to be given 24 plus 6b. The directions are going to say factor, and you are going to end up with this over here. Whatever that was, I just circled that. So factor means what you need to do when you factor is you look at all terms and you divide out the largest common factor. God bless you, one and all. Remember when I said 7th grade math was hard?
Yeah.
Didn't get there. I'll let you write that down and I'll give you the thought process there. This one's easy because I gave you the ending point, and now you have the starting point. Let me give you the thought process here. You have these two terms here. You have 24 and you have 6b. You look at those and you say, what is the biggest number and letter, if I can take a letter out, that I can divide those by? In this case, it would be 6. 6 goes into 24, 6 goes into 6. And you do that. You take 6, put it outside of a parenthesis because we're working backwards to the distributive property. 6 times what gives me 24, or 24 divided by 6 is 4. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and you still have that b there, so you could put down 1b if you like, but usually skip the whole 1 thing and just put the b down. This is factoring. I took a 6 out of both things, I put a parenthesis there. And you might say, well, why would I ever want to do that? There are times in math when you're going to have to factor to make things doable. Let's look at one where you're not given the answer before you start. Let's see if the book gives us one. 6x plus 9. And you are asked to factor. If you're asked to factor, basically you can automatically get in your head, if it's just this thing, you are going to have a parenthesis here. You're going to have some number inside the parenthesis, and you're going to have a couple numbers inside the parenthesis. So you ask yourself, I'm looking at 6x and 9, what can I divide both of those by? The 6 and the 9, what's the biggest? And you want to do the biggest one. You don't want to do the smallest one. What is the biggest thing that goes into 6 and 9? Chase? 3. And that's what goes out here. I can factor out a 3. If I, in fact, divide out that 3, what am I left with in the big parenthesis? Maya, what times 3 gives me 6x? Divide 6 by 3, you get 2, and you still need the x. So that's the first one. And then you divide the 3 into the 9. What times 3 gives me 9? I know that's a tougher one still, which would be, Emma? 3. So this and this are the same thing. This is just factored. 3 times 2x plus 3. This is the factored version of that. So we've got expanding, we've got factoring, and never the twain shall meet. I think everybody's participating.
Shake it up, baby, now.
Shake it up, baby.
I think that's usually the fluster. That's all I'm thinking.
I think it's the band people.
It's right there here.
I started it.
Who started it?
How did I say band?
Nice.
Everybody else.
Alright, I have no idea why this is called. Why is this even on this lesson here? What is going on? No wonder everybody gets confused, because I don't have enough time to do this. I just don't have enough time to do this. Look at page 143. Let's see if we cannot do a couple of the problems they give us there. Matter of fact, right now, right where you are, without moving to a new spot, right now, do practice A, B, C, and D, and let's see if we end up with the same thing. On page 143, please, do A, B, C, and D. Let's see if you get the same thing I would get. I'm going to write them on the board up here. Maybe if you're lucky, we'll get through all of that all at once. What is that? 2 times 3 plus W. Then we have 5 times x minus 3. And then we have 9x plus 6. And we have 8w minus 10. relatively confident you got it all right. See, maybe you can understand then with me why I don't understand why you don't get it. Because to me, it's not that hard. But again, time and time again, class after class, people still don't seem to get this, and I don't know why. Maybe you could help them. Maybe you could shed some light on that. It could be the teacher. No, Zach, don't.
I think it's us.
Everybody got it? It doesn't take that long, children. Expanding and factoring. This first one then, 2 times in parentheses 3 plus w. If you expand that, Sarah grades. If I expand 2 times 3 plus w, I get, continue on, because that's a good start. There's no equal signs. Never in anything we did, Sarah, anywhere in any of these things is there equal signs. Well, there was there, I guess, but that was none of this stuff over here. This is not, you cannot get an exact answer because there are no equal signs. So, Sarah, what do we get? 6 is correct. That's the beginning of it because that's what 2 times 3 is. This is the distributive property, so I have to continue on. It's 6 plus. There's no 3 over here. It's this, putting this with this. This 2 gets multiplied by this for this. This 2 gets multiplied that for 2. There's no 3 there. What's that? What is that letter? Yeah, that's it. 6 plus 2w. That's all you can do. Are you with me on that? How many people? Raise your hand if you got that. What? Somebody said they're still doing it?
No, I messed up.
Okay. The next one, 5 times x minus 3. 5 times x minus 3. Shannon. Not minus 3. Did you multiply? This is distributive property. Yes, this is 5x. Then it's 5 times that 3, which is 15. It's 5x minus 15. Now you can see where I'm going with when I still see people. Got it? You have to distribute it out. That's why it's called the distributive property. Grace, now we're on to factoring. Factor. Yep. Yep. Correct. What's the biggest thing you can take out of these? A 3. You put a parenthesis and then you divide that out, or just say 3 times what gives me 9x. I need a 3x. Keep whatever sign that is. 3 times what gives me 6. 2. Everybody good on that? Raise your hand. Did I do something wrong? Why are you raising your hand? Ooh. 8w minus 10. 8w minus 10. Connor, I'm going to give you a shot at this one. What number, the first thing you have to answer is what number can you divide both 8 and 10 by? 2. And that's the biggest number that goes outside of the parenthesis. Now the next thing you realize is this is minus, so that's also going to be in the parenthesis. Now you just have to figure out what times what's going to give you that. So what do I multiply 2 by to get 8w? 2 times 5 is 10. 4 and a w. And then you do the same thing. 2 times what gives me 10. There's where the 5 goes. Tougher still. Did we get that? Yes? Tell me your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to factoring.
7, 10,
8,
9,
I was happy until somebody threw out there a 4. Another one. Write these down. How about this, by the way? ax plus ay. If I asked you to write a cursive F.
Capital or
Oh, there it is.
it's like
capital O.
If I asked you to factor that, what would you get? Now notice there's no numbers there, but it doesn't have to be numbers. As long as they have something in common, you can factor. What do you suppose you're going to factor out of ax plus ay? Uh-oh, Zach. I lost Zach, kids. Oh, what do they have in common, Zach? That's it. That's what you take out. They both have A's. And if you take an A out, what are you going to be left with? An X plus a Y. X plus Y. And then notice if you did the distributive property, A times X is AX. A times Y is AY. You get it back with what you started with. That's what I was thinking.
Shake it up, baby, now.
Shake it up, baby.
Just a couple more. Let's do a tough one. 15x minus 20. How about this? I'm going to do this one. 12m a minus 6a. And I asked you to factor. Let's see how deep we can get with this. If you were told to factor. You don't get parentheses, you know you did something wrong. There will be parentheses involved. Anytime you factor, you're going to end up with parentheses when it comes to a problem like this. Well, they'll both have parentheses. Yes, yes, they will. You've got parentheses. Yes, we do. You've got parentheses. How about you? Correct responses. You got more. Who really feels like they want to take a shot at that top one up there?
Oh, wait. No, I don't do that.
You can't take it. Leighton Purdue.
5 parentheses 3x minus 4.
That is absolutely positively correct. You can take a 5 out of both of them. In parentheses, then what times 5 gives you that 15x? That's 3x, and then minus 4. Now, before we do the next one, I'm going to tell you what I see people going wrong with on this one here. Remember, it's factoring out, number one, the greatest number that goes into both of them. If you took a 2 out, you did factor, but you didn't take the greatest common factor. If you took a 3 out, you also factored, but not the greatest one. What is the biggest number that 12 goes into 12 and 6? Emily?
6.
So 6 should have been the number, but in addition to that, both of these have an A in common.
Oh.
So you can take out a 6 and an A. I just thought you guys seemed like you were catching it, so I was going to go one step farther here.
I thought I had it.
And then, how many people took a 6 and an A? Did anybody else take an A out? Oh, Laura. You did get the A out? Yes. So then what you're left with, so if you did take the 6 and the A out, what would you be left with here? An M and a 2. So you get a 2M. Now, here's the other thing where people go wrong. A lot of times they stop right there and go, that's my answer because this already is a 6A. That is incorrect. Okay? Because remember I said this is the opposite of expanding. If you saw this, if I gave you 6A times 2M and you multiplied it out, what would you get? Just 12AM. Oh, 12 a.m. What time is it? You got to get this. You have to get this. So if I only did this, I'm not going to get that again. So what do I have to put? Anybody?
1.
What times this gives me that? 1. You must have 2m minus 1. You have to at least put that 1 there, otherwise that term goes away and it's not going to be the same thing. So if you get the same thing into the same thing, you got to put a 1. Another example of that would be this. 25b minus 5. And I asked you, and I asked you to factor that. If I asked you to factor that, what would you get? Be very, very careful. Aaron says, take the 5 out.
5 times 5b minus 1.
Yeah, 5b minus 1. If these are exactly the same, you have to put a 1 here. You have to. Otherwise, you'll lose that whole term. It's not any good for